Come on, get your cockles. Je voudrais. Yeah, what's that? Les petits manger. Breakfast, is it? Deux billets. 2 tickets, s'il vous plaît. Yeah, any time, governor. Come again. Down and out in Paris and London. The podcast. Sorry, I thought I was ready to go then, but I've not plugged everything in, so very slack. Okay, right, chapter 13 then, and let me just have a quick look ahead, see what we've got coming up. Okay, so not much on the first couple of pages, but then we've got a few bits after that. So yeah, let's get straight into it and see where we get to.
On my third day at the hotel, the chef de personnel, who had generally spoken to me in quite a pleasant tone, called me up and said sharply, "Here, you, shave that moustache off at once. Nom de Dieu, who ever heard of a plongeur with a moustache?" I began to protest, but he cut me short. "A plongeur with a moustache? Nonsense! Take care I don't see you with it tomorrow." On the way home I asked Boris what this meant. He shrugged his shoulders. "You must do what he says, mon ami. No one in a hotel wears a moustache except the cooks. I should have thought you would have noticed it. Reason? There is no reason. It is the custom." I saw that it was an etiquette, like not wearing a white tie with a dinner jacket, and shaved off my moustache. Afterwards I found out the explanation of the custom, which is this. Waiters in good hotels do not wear moustaches, and to show their superiority they decree that plongeurs shall not wear them either, and the cooks wear their moustaches to show their contempt for the waiters. This gives some idea of the elaborate caste system existing in a hotel. Our staff, amounting to about 110, had their prestige graded as accurately as that of soldiers, and a cook or waiter was as much above a plongeur as a captain above a private. Highest of all came the manager, who could sack anybody, even the cooks. We never saw the patron, and all we knew of him was that his meals had to be prepared more carefully than those of the customers. All the discipline of the hotel depended on the manager. He was a conscientious man, and always on the lookout for slackness, but we were too clever for him. A system of service bells ran through the hotel, and the whole staff used these for signalling to one another. A long ring and a short ring, followed by 2 more long rings, meant that the manager was coming, and when we heard it, we took care to look busy. Below the manager came the maître d'hôtel. He did not serve at table, unless to a lord or someone of that kind, but directed the other waiters and helped with the catering. His tips and his bonus from the champagne companies, it was 2 francs for each cork he returned to them, came to 200 francs a day. He was in a position quite apart from the rest of the staff, and took his meals in a private room, with silver on the table and 2 apprentices in clean white jackets to serve him. A little below the head waiter came the head cook, drawing about 5,000 francs a month. He dined in the kitchen, but at a separate table, and one of the apprentice cooks waited on him. Then came the chef de personnel. He drew only 1,500 francs a month, but he wore a black coat and did no manual work, and he could sack plongeurs and fine waiters. Then came the other cooks, drawing anything between 3,000 and 750 francs a month, then the waiters, making about 70 francs a day in tips, besides a small retaining fee, then the laundresses and sewing women, then the apprentice waiters who received no tips but were paid 750 francs a month, then the plongeurs, also at 750 francs, then the chambermaids at 500 or 600 francs a month, and lastly the cafetier at 500 a month. We of the cafeterie were the very dregs of the hotel, despised and tutoired by everyone.
So there's the list, obviously, here of the different roles and statuses within the hotel and the restaurant, and the list there, and the numerical lexis of the fees, the salary that they make, their wages, also gives it that authenticity and that sort of inverted incrementum as well, going down to the very lowest paid workers, such as they are. And Sorry, bear with me a sec. Yeah, and you've got, just backing up a little bit, you've got the comparison to the military service, the fact that a waiter is as much above a plongeur as a captain above a private. And you'll remember that Boris obviously talked in military terms, thinking back to his history and his past as a Russian. Was he a captain? I think he was a captain, wasn't he? So there is that sort of military ranking, which is so familiar to Boris, that George Orwell finds interesting within a hotel system and a catering setup like this one.
There were various others, the office employees called generally couriers, the storekeeper, the cellarman, some porters and pagers, the iceman, the bakers, the night watchman, the doorkeeper.
So another list there as well, obviously you've noticed, to show the range of employees that a hotel might have, and the range of different ranks. And just backing up a little bit, I realised I missed there the very dregs of the hotel, which is a metaphor, isn't it? Meaning, but it's a metaphor drawn from food and drink. So it's an interesting, apt metaphor. The dregs are the bits left at the bottom, aren't they, of a drink or of a saucepan, let's say, something, the sort of debris left at the bottom, so the very dregs of the hotel. So it's a very fitting metaphor for their particular status, but also because they work in the catering industry.
Different jobs were done by different races. The office employees and the cooks and sewing women were French, the waiters, Italian and Germans. There is hardly such a thing as a French waiter in Paris. The plongeurs of every race in Europe, besides Arabs and Negroes. French was the lingua franca, even the Italians speaking it to one another. All the departments had their special perquisites. In all Paris hotels it is the custom to sell the broken bread to bakers for 8 sous a pound, and the kitchen scraps to pig keepers for a trifle, and to divide the proceeds of this among the plongeurs. There was much pilfering, too. The waiters all stole food. In fact, I seldom saw a waiter trouble to eat the rations provided for him by the hotel, and the cooks did it on a larger scale in the kitchen, and we in the cafeterie swilled illicit tea and coffee. The cellarman stole brandy. By a rule of the hotel, the waiters were not allowed to keep stores of spirits, but had to go to the cellarman for each drink as it was ordered. As the cellarman poured out the drinks, he would set aside perhaps a teaspoonful from each glass, and he amassed quantities in this way. He would sell you the stolen brandy for 5 sous a swig, if he thought he could trust you. There were thieves among the staff, and if you left money in your coat pockets it was generally taken. The doorkeeper, who paid our wages and searched us for stolen food, was the greatest thief in the hotel.
So there's the irony there, but also the superlative of the greatest thief in the hotel. So the irony that the doorkeeper, is it the doorkeeper? Yeah, the doorkeeper, who should be the guard against corruption and against crime, is actually the worst of all of them. So that superlative is certainly ironic.
Out of my 500 francs a month, this man actually managed to cheat me of 114 francs in 6 weeks. I had asked to be paid daily, so the doorkeeper paid me 16 francs each evening, and, by not paying for Sundays, for which of course payment was due, pocketed 64 francs. Also, I sometimes worked on a Sunday, for which, though I did not know it, I was entitled to an extra 25 francs. The doorkeeper never paid this either, and so made away with another 75 francs. I only realized during my last week that I was being cheated, and as I could prove nothing, only 25 francs were refunded. The doorkeeper played similar tricks on any employee who was fool enough to be taken in. He called himself a Greek, but in reality he was an Armenian. After knowing him, I saw the force of the proverb, "Trust a snake before a Jew and a Jew before a Greek, but don't trust an Armenian."
So, apart from being hugely xenophobic, we've got within that proverb a bit of anadiplosis of the word Jew. Trust a snake before a Jew and a Jew before a Greek, but don't trust an Armenian. So sort of the building to the fact, again, like negative incrementum, really, inverted incrementum, getting worse and worse, lastly being an Armenian. We can't credit Orwell for that, of course. It's a proverb, but it lends that proverb some rhetorical weight by having that crafted anadiplosis.
There were queer characters among the waiters. One was a gentleman, a youth who had been educated at a university and had had a well-paid job in a business office. He had caught a venereal disease, lost his job, drifted, and now considered himself lucky to be a waiter. Many of the waiters had slipped into France without passports, and one or two of them were spies. It is a common profession for a spy to adopt. One day there was a fearful row in the waiters' dining room between Morandi, a dangerous-looking man with eyes set too far apart, and another Italian. It appeared that Morandi had taken the other man's mistress. The other man, a weakling and obviously frightened of Morandi, was threatening vaguely. Morandi jeered at him. "Well, what are you going to do about it? I've slept with your girl, slept with her 3 times. It was fine. What can you do, eh? I can denounce you to the secret police. You are an Italian spy." Morandi did not deny it. He simply produced a razor from his tail pocket and made 2 swift strokes in the air, as though slashing a man's cheeks open, whereat the other waiter took it back. The queerest type I ever saw in the hotel was an extra. He had been engaged at 25 francs for the day to replace the Magyar who was ill. He was a Serbian, a thick-set, nimble fellow of about 25, speaking 6 languages, including English. He seemed to know all about hotel work, and up till midday he worked like a slave. Then, as soon as it had struck 12, he turned sulky, shirked his work, stole wine, and finally crowned all by loafing about openly with a pipe in his mouth.
So as well as the simile comparing him to a slave, which is slightly dehumanizing, it verges on chromomorphism. It's certainly an unflattering description, but at the same time it describes how hard he works, but also dehumanizes him. And then you have this list of all the vices that he displays: his turning sulky, his shirking his work, stealing wine, and then loafing about with a pipe in his mouth.
Smoking, of course, was forbidden under severe penalties. The manager himself heard of it and came down to interview the Serbian, fuming with rage. "What the devil do you mean by smoking here?" he cried. "What the devil do you mean by having a face like that?" answered the Serbian calmly.
So like with Funda, by having direct speech from these characters, these people he's met, the reader is immersed into this world, and you've got this very comical adjacency pair with these 2 lines of dialogue, with the Serbian repeating the question and rephrasing the question with his own words. So it's a sort of it's a farcical conversation, farcical dialogue between these 2 people, and it's interesting because, of course, this is. I'm trying to just look back a second here. Has Orwell seen this himself? Yes, he has. This is direct verbatim. But it's interesting that Orwell has recorded this in some way to be able to log it, and we do have to question how authentic this is, and how much of this is accurate, and how much of it is sort of drawn from imagination and memory. But it's certainly presented, like in Funda, as a very factual account of exactly what was said. And I think we said the same thing with Funda. And so we have that here. So the use of direct speech is certainly an important one. Both writers do use direct speech, and sometimes, interesting dialogue, sometimes verging on stickomythia. In this case, it's not stickomythia as such. It's there's not enough of it to be that. It's just 2 lines. It's more like an adjacency pair, but a very conflicting and antagonistic adjacency pair. So it's it lends a certain humour to this, and it lends, borrows on the humour that they had in the restaurants. It seems that sort of dark, aggressive, very quick, hot-tempered conversations that were had.
I cannot convey the blasphemy of such a remark. The head cook, if a plongeur had spoken to him like that, would have thrown a saucepan of hot soup in his face. The manager said instantly, "You are sacked," and at 2 o'clock the Serbian was given his 25 francs and duly sacked. Before he went out, Boris asked him in Russian what game he was playing. he said the Serbian answered, "Look here, mon vieux, they've got to pay me a day's wages if I work up to midday, haven't they? That's the law, and where's the sense of working after I get my wages? So I tell you what I do. I go to a hotel and get a job as an extra, and up to midday I work hard. Then, the moment it's struck 12, I start raising such hell that they've no choice but to sack me, neat, eh? Most days I'm sacked by 12:30. Today it was 2 o'clock. But I don't care. I've saved 4 hours' work. The only trouble is one can't do it at the same hotel twice." It appeared that he had played this game at half the hotels and restaurants in Paris. It is probably quite an easy game to play during the summer, though the hotels protect themselves against it as well as they can by means of a blacklist.
The accordion. Oh. It's like being down the Champs-Élysées, isn't it? And the Montparnasse. The Montmartre. Okay, that's it for chapter 13. Let me pause that there, and we'll pick it up again for chapter 14 next time. See you then.